Welcome. Today I'm going to show you how we trimmed out our windows on our Barndominium. Now this Barndominium is a little bit different than a typical house. You have a much deeper seal area that you have to put in. In this case we have roughly an 8-inch purlin that you have along with a 2x4 wall. A typical house is only going to be a 2x4 or 2x6 wall stud, but in this case we have much more depth there. So we're using a 1x12 board that we're coming here and cutting down to length. Just get everything rough dried into the right length and getting it fit up properly. You see here we're just using a typical miter saw and just chopping everything down to the right length that we need. Now as we come in the inside, you can see that we've got the boards up in place, just roughed in. They're overhanging a little bit, so now I'll sit back and mark everything to get it flush with where we want it to be where it sits. It needs to sit flush with the wall, or else your trim will be sticking out or either having a big gap to fill in. So I'm going through marking, taking them out of the saw and cutting them all off, making sure that we get them good, nice and fit. Once we get everything to how we like it, making sure that it fits good and everything's trimmed properly, we'll then use a Craig jig and do pocket holes on the two sides. Now we've been putting 4 pocket holes per joint there on the corner. Seems to work really good. Everything gets nice and tight together, holds together very well. I don't have to worry about it tweaking or anything of that nature. So here I'm going through and just putting our holes in here. It's not precision. We just kind of have some marks that we have set up that works. So now just take and screw it all together. These are using 1 1/4 inch screws. It does help having 2 people just to kind of help hold it in place. It's a little bit difficult sometimes, especially when you get on longer pieces and like on the side windows that are the 3x5s. It's much tougher than this little window here. But once you get everything nice, screwed together like you want it to, you'll be then able to set it in place into the window sill. And here we are getting it in place. Making sure the reveal is what we want, so kind of shim it out every which, each direction, and making sure we get exactly what we want. And here I'm just using shims, typical door shims and stuff. I did have a little bit more gap on the right than I did the left, so I used a couple pieces of fill wood and then used the shims, which worked great. I always like to make sure too that we keep everything nice and flat, because if you ain't careful you'll start getting a bow in these things, especially when you have something on a longer piece. You can easily bow it out if you don't pay attention and check. And here we just go through and putting 2 nails per, basically in each corner on the bottom and then on the side as well, and then we put 2 in the middle and then 2 on the tops and stuff. So it really gets secured up very well once we get it in there. And also try to make sure that when you put your shims in there to shoot the nails through those shims, and it helps hold them in place when you cut them off. Now we're going here and marking our reveal that we want for our trim. Now we're doing a more traditional style craftsman trim, and basically it's a 1x4 that go up each side and a 1x4 along the bottom. And then on top we'll use a 5/4 by 6 that has like 1x2 nailed to the top of it. So we get our reveals marked, get our pieces cut, and then it's basically lining them up on our marks that we have for our reveal. And I'll put 6 nails into each of those pieces there, 2 in the middle, 2 on the top, and 2 on the bottom. The ones that are on the inside, I try to make sure that you nail into the actual casing that's there, and it ties everything really nice and tight together. And we always like to double check our measurements before we cut the tops and bottoms. Now here's an actual top piece. You see I've got the 1x2 sitting on top of the 5/4 board, and that's where I just nail it straight to the top. And then here we are putting the bottom board up. And then last but not least, the top board going in. Now the 5/4 gives you a nice little reveal right there on the top as well, so it just gives it an extra little step of detail to it. But feel free to comment if you have any questions.